What's up, everybody? Appreciate you for tuning in. It's a brand new show, even though it looks like Passion and Precision. It's Snap Counts podcast. So normally we will have like other people on as well. So just for tonight, it's gonna be Jory and myself. So with this, we're just gonna kind of come on here Sunday nights as the 1 o'clock games are over, the 4 o'clock window is kind of winding down to talk about what happened early on today and take a kind of quick look at the Sunday night football game. So, like I said, expect this every Sunday, probably like 6:30. We're on at 7 tonight, but kind of in this area. So make sure you come on through and I guess either vent about your team or celebrate your team. Definitely do that in the chat. But yeah, so before we get into everything, Jory, how are you doing?
I got a lot on my mind today. It was a great day for football. I mean, if I'm trying to be a little level-headed as a Titans fan, I'm gonna be level-headed because
Mm-hmm.
everybody else clearly cannot right now. But
Right.
I'm gonna be
I
a
mean,
level-headed
that's
person.
always tough.
I'm gonna be the voice of reason. But it was a great day for football because exactly what I picked to happen turned out to be the opposite. So great day
Yeah.
today.
Okay. I mean, I feel like that's kind of what happens with, the aspect of football. You want your team to win every week, obviously, and it's like a fine line between going crazy after the game or like taking a step back and really kind of break down stuff and really take stock of where your team is because they're still very early in the season. It's only week 2. So some of these teams that may have started out 2-0 could flame out by the end of the season. And some of these teams that started 0-2 normally isn't great for you, but I feel like some of them can turn it around based off of, opponent that they played or, different circumstances. But like I said, we'll go ahead, get into it. Let me put this up for you guys. That way you can kind of keep track with the scores. Because right now, the only games we have going on, Steelers have a 13-3 lead on the Broncos. And what's turned out to be a really good game, well, sloppy moments, but Bengals up 25-23 on the Chiefs. All the Chiefs are driving right now. So, yeah, I mean, probably want to move down from that ad about driving high. Don't necessarily want to put that out there. Um, yeah, so I guess looking at the 1 o'clock window today, like what's something that stood out to you? I have a feeling you probably want to start with your team. So, yeah, like how'd you feel about it? Because obviously, went up against the Jets, lose by a touchdown. But, what can you take away from that game? What stood out to you?
One, the special teams need some help. That's the first thing. Because I'm watching the game, and every time we punt or and we get a ball back to them, they get 30 yards before they get touching the ground. I know there's new
Mm-hmm.
rules and whatnot, but do better. Second, this was the bonehead game. Like this, we're not going to sit here and blame Will Levis completely
Mm-hmm.
on this game, especially when your $96 million defensive tackle gets a 15-yard penalty that if they don't have that, they probably don't score.
What's going on, Pat?
Levis, I'm finna get into him in a minute because people are going cuckoo about Will Levis. Here's the thing. From last week to this week, we've seen levels of improvement in some
Mm-hmm.
of his decision making. At the same time, he has a tendency to do meat-headed dumb stuff. I'm talking right here, John. You don't have to sub me. I'm right here and I'm talking about it. Calm
Right.
down with the Facebook fingers and actually listen. Um Levis, I see a lot of potential. He just needs to
Mm-hmm.
be coached up to the point where he feels that he doesn't need to self-sabotage. He doesn't need to be hero ball. That pick, I'm not blaming him for that. That was in Traylon Burks' hands. He just got mugged
Hmm.
for it. And you can't, as Traylon Burks, where he's at with me, this is his year to put up or shut up. Because I'm ready to trade him for a third round pick and some crackers. So I'm
Okay.
not blaming Levis on that. Where I will blame
Hmm.
Levis is that dumb fumble. Take the sack. Do not do Mickey Mouse Lollapalooza type stuff and you lose ball security trying to be a hero. Stop it. Once he's going through growing pains. The thing with Will
Hmm.
Levis is he's going through his growing pains. Did anybody talk anything like this? What did we say about Josh Allen when he was going through his growing pains? The thing is, they're trying to coach that up out of him. So if you really pay attention, if you notice it, you know that this is going to take time. This is a new coaching staff, especially on the offense. You have a retooled offense completely. It's going to take time. A week
Hmm.
two, that was the bonehead game. Defense made some mess ups, offense made some mess ups. That was the bonehead game. Now, how are we going to learn from this as a team? And they need to figure out how to play two solid halves of football.
Hmm.
I've seen one. I've seen one and a quarter. I haven't seen two solid halves of football yet. He's getting it together, but the offensive line, I'm glad we didn't get more penalties than we did. Because Nicholas Petit Frere, he jumps early on almost every snap. But like with the offensive line, there's new pieces, there's new players, that is also going to take some time to gel. So considering that and the fact that the offense has new key pieces,
Hmm.
I'm not throwing in the white towel and I'm not panicking. The
Okay.
defense is legit. If we could keep them off the field so they can rest, I'm, in all honesty, I'm not really worried about it because time, like, it's week two. If we still talking about the same stuff week 7 or week 8, we might have a problem. It's week two.
Hmm. So I mean, look, I watched it as well. I thought, like you said, the Burks interception was, him giving his guy a shot, and Burks wasn't exactly as aggressive with it in the air as he probably could have. But it's also got to be said, the touchdown pass to Ridley down the right sideline. He gave his guy a chance to make a play. Ridley made the play, and they scored a touchdown. So, in a game of inches, right? Ridley makes the play, which is a one-handed play, really great play from a pretty good wide receiver, and Burks shied away from it a little bit. I mean, he also made a good throw to Pollard on a wheel route that was between two defenders. So yeah, I agree with you. It's week two. You kind of have to take the good with the bad, especially still a young, developing quarterback. So yeah, I don't think there's any reason to panic. And I mean, look, as Pat said, it's way too early to panic. It's just something to talk about. And I mean, that's definitely what you have to do. And look, that's what we're gonna do on here every week. Just talk about what's going on. And obviously, you all in the chat can bring up your team or wherever. Bring your thoughts about yours as well. Because I will say, you Patriots had a good game today. I knew it was going to be tough against Seattle because Seattle is kind of a team that's under the radar a bit. I think a lot of people don't necessarily know what to think about them, and you can see it. Like McDonald has done some things with that defense. Defensively, they play really well. I thought offensively, I thought Geno Smith handled pressure really well. Then again, he's a veteran. I mean, John, time for Drake. I
It's
think
week
the
two.
I think the conversation could be had is week 2. Like I said, Drake May's probably going to pop up in October. I'm not going to necessarily kill Brissett for today because look, last week they beat Cincinnati. Everybody said it was strictly the running game. Today they did a little bit more in the passing game. It kind of seems like they're going to probably explore the pass like in the first half, hopefully play with the lead, and then beat up on teams in the second half with the running game. Because Ramondre Stevenson is doing his thing. I thought Antonio Gibson was better today than last week. And every time I watch him, I only see 3 7-yard throws. I think that's kind of game plan specific, especially with Seattle. Seattle has a pretty good secondary. So I think Van Pelt didn't want to necessarily, test it too much. Because, like I said, they attacked him with Hunter Henry over the middle in the intermediate. And Hunter Henry had, 8 catches for 105 yards? Let's see. They was killing Brissett. Brissett is tough. That dude takes a lot of hits. I mean, I know he's kind of a bigger guy. He's not the quickest, but he took a couple of hits, and I was wondering if he might have to leave the game. There was the one sack when he kind of got folded back. I thought he might have hurt his leg. Then it was I think it was like a third and 5. He took a blindside hit. I thought he might have hurt his ribs. So I do think the Drake May timeline is probably still October.
Yeah.
But Darian Lowe he's there. They put a core 4 on the non-football injury list, which I think basically means he's gone. So I've liked what I've seen from Layden Robinson. At least that's something to look forward to. The offensive line's been okay through 2 weeks. Still an issue, but they've been okay. I feel like probably want to talk about the Cowboys.
No,
Saints
before
put
I
up
get into the
44 on them.
Cowboys,
Oh, yeah.
let's
Go ahead.
before we get into the Cowboys, let's talk about the purple feather brains and what they did
Oh,
versus
yeah.
the Raiders today. I am not going to sit here and let that slide. You mean to
Go
tell
ahead.
me that Lamar Jackson, two-time MVP, could not get down into field goal range within 30 seconds, and Will Levis marched his happy behind down the field in less than a minute in the fourth quarter? Where they do that at? Two-time MVP. And why did y'all get
Mm-hmm.
a $30 million running back to do this? Granted, he got going a little bit in the second half. But Harbaugh said he's not going to get 30 touches and da-da-da-da. So you don't expect much if you don't.
I remembered him saying that, and I was like, why? Why would you
Why
say
would you
that?
even spend the
Obviously,
money to get that?
right. Or at least use him better earlier on. And because there's one point he had 7 carries, 5 yards.
And then he got to
That's not what
negatives,
Derrick Henry is.
and it was like, if he keeps this up, next week he going on the bench on my squad. Keep this up.
Yeah.
And then that secondary, if you say anything about
Yes. New show.
if you say anything about certain people in that secondary, you act like you're attacking the whole team. Last week and this week, I done seen Marlon Humphrey get burnt about 3 times. Maybe more. That's an
Mm-hmm.
issue. The offensive line is not built to run block very well. That's an issue. Whatever. I'm not the Ravens as a whole. And then Harbaugh. When are we going to get into our brains that Harbaugh is overrated as a coach at this point?
So I wonder for Harbaugh, is the problem that does he think if he puts it in Derrick Henry's hand like 25, 30 times, does he think that takes away from Lamar? And is he trying to weigh whether or not it's worth it? Because I'm like you, it's like you went and got Derrick Henry. We all know the type of running back Derrick Henry is. And they've kind of brought him in there to be like a 15 carry kind of guy. And if that is your plan, then you got to be smarter with the 15 carries. Whether it's backloading them towards later in the game when maybe you're facing a you know weaker defensive line or defensive front, and then now you feature him to beat up on that, or you get him going early to make it easier on Lamar late. I feel like that's where they're like struggling to figure out when to use them, when not to use them, how much to use them. And kind of like you said, like you went out and got him, kind of assume you had a plan for getting him.
And the fact
And
of
through
the
two
matter
weeks,
is that game was
it's
three
been real
threes.
uneven. Yeah,
That game was 3-3 or 3-6 or whatever it was for the longest time. So I was not impressed. Maybe a little bit by the Raiders. Wait a minute. Speaking of the Raiders, you mean to tell me that the Baltimore Ravens quarterback got outplayed by a man with a cartoon mustache?
I mean,
He got outplayed.
look, we know what Gardner Minshew is. Gardner Minshew is when he's on your team, he's like every team's favorite backup quarterback because he's got the cool look, he's got the whole Uncle Rico thing, which everybody loves talking about. You've seen Minshew in spurts play well. The thing for the Raiders will be with him obviously being the main guy, the number one. Can he play well over a 17 game season? Or will they maybe have to pull him from a game or two, go to O'Connell, and then put him back out there and try to get that streakiness in him? I don't know, because Minshew, I don't know how far the Raiders can really go with him as their starting quarterback.
Not
Like,
far
he's obviously
until they
better than
find their
O'Connell is.
franchise.
Yeah. That's all he kind of is right. He's just a bridge quarterback right now until they probably go back into the draft next year, depending how bad they are, to get one of the guys coming out next year. Although, as Pat says, he thinks the Raiders could win 10 games, which if you're winning 10 games with Gardner Minshew, that
They have
kind
a
of
good
changes what your
defense.
offseason plans would be. Yeah.
The Raiders do have a good defense. That's the one bright spot on that team in Devontae Adams, who
Yeah.
Marlon Humphrey made look like he was about 4 years younger, huh? And company made him turn back the clock.
I've always thought you could pick on Humphrey because Humphrey's one of those, real physical corners, which Baltimore loves to have. A lot of times those guys will get burnt by obviously higher level, tier receivers because the smart ones will know how to use their physicality against them to get off the line. So yeah, there'll be some weeks Humphrey may lock up some wide receiver who can't handle his physicality. But yeah, if you get time in the pocket, he's probably the guy I would pick on. I mean, I said it on other shows um like I like Hamilton better than Humphrey, but Humphrey is like a Baltimore type of corner. So yeah. And
I
Devontae
don't
Adams is
hate
a
Marlon
really good
Humphrey.
wide receiver.
I don't hate Marlon Humphrey. He's a Bama boy by heart. I hate the team that he plays for. There's a difference.
Yeah.
I cannot stand them.
Yeah.
Period. And for as long as I got mocked about Levis this offseason, and for Lamar to come out, and for Lamar and those Ravens and my Titans to have the exact same record in 2 games, oh, I'm gonna have some fun with that one. Both 0-2.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let me see, who do the Ravens have up next? Is
I
it
got Green Bay, and that's winnable,
yeah, well, I
d-
mean, when you get
depending
now
on Levis.
with no Jordan Love with Green Bay, I guess I could segue into the next game. Green Bay went out and won with Malik Willis, and they did exactly what I thought they would do, which apparently the Colts were surprised by. They went with Josh Jacobs in the running game. They limited what Malik Willis had to do in the passing game. They wanted to be physical. Now it would have been interesting to see like if the Colts could have slowed down the running game, what that game would have looked like. But look, 16-10, same score that the Patriots beat the Bengals with. You could kind of say similar ways in playing out. The more physical team got the better in that one. Can they do it again? And obviously your
No.
Tennessee squad will be prepared for it with a really, aggressive defense. It'll be interesting to see what Malik Willis can do off of that.
And Malik, he knows exactly what's coming for him because he just came from us. I'm not
Yeah,
scared of no Malik.
right. I
And
mean,
I'm not scared of
nobody's
that
gonna be nobody's
offensive
gonna be
line
afraid
of
of
the
him.
Packers. And I'm not scared of that either. Look,
Yeah,
that's why I feel like it's a winnable game. Barring self-sabotage Levis. Stop that dumb crap, sir.
yeah.
But they played
Um,
well. And like I said in that preseason game versus with the one I saw with the Colts, I'm like, they have some issues stopping the run.
Pat
I
thinks
said
the
they
Colts will finish fourth in the South.
ask some people the Titans will, but that's neither here or there. Whistle, whistle.
Yeah,
Two
I mean, look,
games.
a lot of the preseason, you know, predictions and all that made it seem like your team, and my team are going to be really bad this year. We'll see. All right, so
At least they don't look like
Pat.
the Panthers.
Well, the Panthers. I mean, the Panthers are the Panthers. To be honest with you, I honestly don't know if they win a game this year just based off of 2 weeks. I know I'm one of those who doesn't want to overreact to the 2 weeks, but there's not a lot of reasons to think that they beat anybody with the way that they look right now.
Uh-uh.
So I'm about to
Until
say
I see it.
Pat has thrown out the Cowboys, and
Well, let's
John
get
has
into them
thrown out
too.
the Browns. Which one do you want to start with first?
Let's start with the Browns. No, 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 because I might be a little long-winded with the Browns and how I feel about that
Let's go
quarterback.
Cowboys.
Let's go Cowboys. Because they did a whole bunch of nothing as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Saints have just decided to make me a lie. I thought last week was a fluke because they were playing the Panthers, but the Saints usually play well in the beginning of the season. It's
Mm-hmm.
mid-season that they start to bottom out.
Yeah.
So the fact that right now Derek Carr looks like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers combined, it's
Yeah.
temporary. It is temporary. At the same time, the Cowboys made Deshaun Watson look like a fool last week and got punked this week. Like, come on. I don't. Mike McCarthy is a walking question mark. What does he do particularly well? Does he have his team ready to consistently play well off the bus? No. Does he consistently
Mm.
formulate great game plans that are conducive to winning football? No. Does he have terribly good clock management? No.
Mm.
What does he do pretty much particularly well? This is the game that showed me this. 'Cause I'm like, the Saints are not better than the Cowboys.
No,
That
they shouldn't
defense
be.
looked flat, like they didn't know what to do. Um, their
It's
defense
not
looked
gonna
flat and they
not
didn't
gonna
know
block
what
you
to
for
do.
that.
And, that shouldn't be funny, but it is because it's true.
I mean, yeah, it really is. Well,
Like,
so a question about the Cowboys, like, so do you think it's a situation of because obviously Mike McCarthy, offensive minded guy, that's why he got the job. Is it a problem of the pieces on offense, or is it coming to the realization that maybe he's a guy that's not made for being a head coach? Maybe he'd be better off as a coordinator at this point. And John puts it the running game. Like I mean, they were all right when we had Zeke and Pollard. Now it's basically Zeke, a year older, more
you had
miles on the body.
They
Yeah.
had Deuce Vaughn running the ball, and he about a hair bigger than me. Where
Yeah.
is that winning football at? Deuce Vaughn is how tall? 5'6" ish?
I mean, he
Because he
looks
looks
like 4
short.
feet on the screen.
He looks 5'3". He looked no bigger than me.
Yeah.
And I'm 5'3" and a
He
quarter,
looks
by the way.
like Dion Lewis, those type of guys. The real tiny. I mean, Dion Lewis made it work for him.
He sure did.
5'6".
He's
Okay.
still tiny. That is
Yeah.
tiny for a running back. Actually, that's tiny for a football player, period.
Yeah.
Like that's print magazine model type size right there. Not runway model magazine. Not runway model type size. That's print magazine size. I'm like, I'm tiny with
I,
big feet. That means nothing. I'm 5'3" with a 10 who wear a size 10 shoe. That means absolutely nothing. The
well,
Cowboys just do random. This might be that trap game. I said I wouldn't mind if this was probably the trap game, but it shows a lot of weaknesses that will get them killed come week 10.
mhm. So how worried would you be about them in terms of for next week?
Who they play next week? I'm acting
I
like I
got
ain't got a schedule right here.
because
Do I?
as I was asking the question, I was like, let me take a quick look because I don't want to just guess some.
They just play. They have the Ravens next week. Oh hell.
That's right. That's right. I guess something's got to give in that game.
Yeah, something's gonna have to give. Lamar gonna have to figure out how to throw outside the numbers, or the Cowboys are gonna have to play well on all four fronts. All four fronts.
Darren Sproles is 5'6".
They're still tiny. When you think football players, you don't think no 5'5", 5'6", and they're very talented. I'm not trying to downplay the fact that they're talented. I'm just saying they're small.
And the Chiefs just won it on a walk-off field goal. So
Oh, Kansas City.
26-25
That's
Chiefs.
such a Chiefs thing to do. And
Yeah.
I know the Bengals fans are about to be pissed, and I'm finna laugh.
So I guess as John asked about it, uh, so he says, are we seeing the page slowly turning? Watson might be on the rise, or is it just the fact that they played against the Jags? Don't read too much into it.
Don't read too much into that because the Jags started that game the exact way they ended the last one, backsliding and not doing
Yeah.
jack squat. And the fact that the Browns actually let the Jags catch up said a lot. So I'm really not reading into it. He's cooked, he's washed, he doesn't need to be on an NFL team. Go sit his little nasty self down somewhere. I look, the Browns will suffer as far as Deshaun Watson is on that field. Period.
All right, yeah. I mean, look, I was about to take a look to see who they play next to see if it's going to be an actual challenge for them. It looks like they have the Giants next.
If the
That's a game they
Browns
should
turn
win.
around, they should have won against the Cowboys. But we saw how they came out. I'm
And the
not putting
Giants defensively can play well. They
exactly.
can.
The secondary is a little iffy, but Anthony, I get you. Anthony Richardson is washed. I was not impressed by anything that he did. Period.
Yeah. Hold on. Probably need to start catching on these comments. So Pat didn't expect Buckner and Stewart to get pushed around like that. This was with the Colts and Packers. More shocked the Cards completely destroyed the Rams, which most people say the Rams and Lions are some of the top 5 teams. I was not high on the Rams going into the season, but yes, a lot of people did think that the
I kind
Rams
of
were
was,
like a
but then
sneaky.
that defense decided it wanted to start leaking out the butt, and I'm like, you know what? See ya.
Yeah. I mean, some people thought they were like a sneaky Super Bowl team. Like, I was never that crazy about them. I thought maybe a wild card type of team. I think the Cards could be good. It's just I need to see Kyler Murray locked in and actually playing well. He found Marvin Harrison today. Progress.
Considering last week he said it's not my job to force the ball to rookie wide receivers.
Right.
Oh,
In the back of my
somebody
mind,
pulled him aside and said, "You
exactly.
can't be saying that."
Yeah, in the back of my
Somebody
mind, that
pulled him
meant
aside.
he was going to find him a lot today. We did talk about the Panthers, how many games they'll win. John says 2. He has them beating the Broncos and the Giants.
I don't have them
Okay.
beating the Broncos.
It
It's
might
like
depend
with
on
the
where that game is.
with
I for sure don't see Carolina going to Mile High and beating them. If it's in Carolina, maybe, but if that's a road game, I don't think there's a chance.
who's showing up
I
to that
wouldn't
game
trust
in
that game.
Carolina? Nobody. Um,
I
with the
mean, that's
Panthers, they sell tickets for $1.80 to go to a Panthers game. David Tepper has done absolutely nothing but run that franchise into the ground. And the what you're seeing on the field is the direct result of that. This is what
mhm,
happens when you go through 6 to 7 head coaches in 5 years. This is what happens when you fail your number one draft pick and you don't get him pieces that he actually deserves. He doesn't deserve people on the other side of their prime.
mhm.
He needs viable pieces, and you haven't done that. Bryce Young looked like he don't even want to be there anymore. He looked like he's laboring to get on the field.
I mean,
Like, come
for a young
on.
player dealing with all that, like you have to wonder. It must take a lot out of him showing up to that stadium week in and week out. Back of his mind, understanding they probably have no chance to win. Probably in the back of his mind, assuming he's probably gonna be running for his life every week.
Hmm.
That's rough. And maybe with the new coach there, maybe he can slowly start turning that around a little bit. But if you're a Panthers player, it's like you still got that owner. I don't know how many of them really like that owner there, but
They hate him.
they'd
He
have to.
just bought the team not that long ago. He
Yeah.
just bought the team and they hate him.
Feel so bad for Garrett Cooper, Chubb, and Taylor. They don't deserve this. Neither do the
Oh,
fans.
their fans deserve that. Their fans, Browns fans deserve everything that they get because they've been making jokes about Deshaun Watson and those women and all of that since they signed him. They deserve everything that's coming to them.
Okay. Yeah. So, what do you feel about this from Pat? Higher on the Seahawks than the Rams.
In 2 weeks, yes, I am,
Okay.
considering what I've seen from both teams in 2 weeks. Seahawks still have a good defense. Rams can't stop a nosebleed. That's their problem right now.
Mm-hmm.
And Matthew Stafford
And
is
the
kind of
Puka
slumping a
injury
little
too.
bit, and
Yeah.
they're injury. They have injuries. I like the Seahawks more than the Rams.
And Anthony, sorry, Russell Wilson, you just lost your job. I mean, look, Pittsburgh brought both those guys in, wanting Fields to be the starter long term for sure. Part of me does think, especially if it's early enough in the season, if Russell Wilson is ready to play, I could see them throwing him out there to start a game just to see. But it does seem like they're playing well. Fields isn't. I mean, he's not wowing you necessarily with the stat line, but they're winning. And as long as they keep winning, he has a reason to think he should be the starter. So I don't know if he's lost his job necessarily yet. It's definitely slipping away from him as he's dealing with the calf injury or whatever it is.
Russ can
And
keep being prima donna if you want to. Let Justin Fields get to week 7, week 8 starting. He ain't touching the field this season,
right.
and I'm
Also,
willing to put
also
money on that.
in that city, if there are like stories about him being a diva or whatever, Pittsburgh fans aren't going to care about that. Like that's not a city that they want diva players like
They've had enough of
on their
them.
side. Yeah, they've gone through enough of them, especially at the wide receiver position. Like,
They have enough. They don't need a prima donna quarterback. They just got rid of one in Ben Roethlisberger.
yeah.
They do not want another one.
So John said KC beat the Bengals by 1. Pats won by 6 means the Pats are better than KC. LOL. Um,
That's Ravens fans' logic right there.
all right, here we go. Can't we
That's
talk about
another
how
thing I wanted to
CMC
touch
is
on.
missing almost half the season? Like, really, dude?
He's been missing his game since he came out. So there's there's that. If we remember his time in Carolina, he was missing
Mm-hmm.
games in Carolina. He's gonna miss his games. Now, I don't know how long, I mean, I know exactly how long the 49ers are going to put up with it, but how long are they really going to put up with it before they start looking at something else? Because how long is he going to keep doing this where he starts missing time before it starts to affect his play? That's the big question. Because
I
he's a
still
running
think with
back.
the Niners, I still think with the Niners, their biggest thing would be, is he available late in the year? I feel like to them at this point, that's what's most important. Now, obviously, you got to get to that point and be in contention. Jordan Mason played well against the Jets, but we don't know. Obviously, we don't think he's that kind of running back week in and week out. So if they obviously lose a couple more games like they did today to the Vikings, I feel like the noise will get a little bit louder on CMC. But I think right now, for Niners fans, I'm assuming, I mean, any Niners fans roll up in here and want to chime in, I don't think they're too worried about it just yet. John also kind of piggybacked off of it. Does it show how important CMC is to the 49ers? I feel like that's like a known fact of it. It was just that the Mason thing, like I said last week against the Jets, it made you feel like the gap wasn't as wide as you probably thought with CMC not playing. I think they felt like they could get by with Mason if CMC needed 2, 3, 4 weeks to actually come back healthy. Because I know for a fact they don't want him, coming back because he feels like 80%, then going out for another 2 weeks, then coming back. They don't want that. Like if he comes back, they're assuming he's coming back for the rest of the season. That you don't want to
And
play the
that's
whole
why they
yo-yo
went
game with.
ahead. That's why they went ahead and put him on IR. I told my dad, I said they're thinking about putting Christian McCaffrey on IR. He's like, they wouldn't do that because he's healthy by the end of the season. I said they're thinking about putting him on IR. That means he's
Mm-hmm.
not gonna come back until week 7-ish. Maybe
Yeah.
no, with the week 7 or is it week 8?
Well, I guess it's retroactive to this week, so it'd be week 6, like John said.
Yeah, so week 6. Yep. So it's week 2 yet. My numbers are off. I don't know why I can't think. But yeah,
Okay.
week 6. So they're not gonna have him until week 6. I feel like they'll stay afloat. As long as
Mm-hmm.
Trent ain't hurt, they fine. And the
Niners will be
Vikings,
fine without him and be looking for a third-round pick from some dumb general manager. He's just a running back in the end.
oh,
Anthony
don't
has a
get me
question.
started on that game.
We need to talk about how preseason is important. Aaron Rodgers.
The Jets are overrated. Granted, my team just lost to them today, but that has more to do with my team being a bonehead for most of the game, doing bonehead stuff and special
Mhm.
teams. Not Aaron Rodgers out doing anything. Because I was not impressed. I'm not going there, John, because Rand is not dumb. What dumb general manager brings in Ridley, Pollard, um,
uh,
what dumb general manager?
Steve. Yeah.
You go, cause I'm finna go in. Cause I'm like that. Don't say stupid shit just to fucking trigger me. Like that was just some dumbass stuff that you typed on that keyboard. Dumb? Is you dumb?
I feel like this is going to be a season long thing. John's going to troll on the Titans. Like we get it. Uh,
Find
I guess just
somebody
to
else to
touch on the
troll about.
I guess just to touch on the Anthony part. It's Rogers. Look, Rogers Feels like he's accomplished everything. He's going to do things his way. The Jets are never going to tell him to do it any other way because we see that Robert Saleh is going to bow down to Aaron Rodgers and whatever he wants. I do think it is interesting. This kind of ties into another quarterback. I was hearing a lot of talk about Joe Burrow and whether or not we should start looking at him as being overrated because he hasn't played well the past couple of seasons. Aaron Rodgers has been skating by with that one Super Bowl win for like 15 years now. And I know he's won some MVPs in between there. But for some people who think like that guy's like the greatest quarterback they've ever seen, especially with this Jets team, I think this season, obviously barring injury or anything like that, one, the Jets have to look better than they do now because I agree with you. I'm not with the whole Aaron Rodgers, how he looks right now. I saw the game and they were trying to like give him credit for the 2 touchdown passes and all this. One was a little like shovel pass 2 yards in front of him. Whatever. That was more on the running back making plays after the fact. But, before the season, I had them as a wild card team. Didn't really think they were that big of a threat in the AFC in terms of making the Super Bowl or even the AFC title game, to be honest with you. And from what I've seen from Aaron Rodgers early on, and once again, he didn't play in the preseason, so I guess you had to give him a couple of weeks maybe to ease into it. But I see some throws where he's been late on them. He's put them behind receivers. Sometimes in the pocket, he looks a little jumpy and then not as mobile. Then again, he's been around like 17 years, so that's obviously going to happen. But I think at this point, you could forget about him seeing the field during the preseason. That's just how it is. So if it's the Jets or any other team, depending how long he plays, the first 4 or 5 weeks, I guess you have to give him a pass because he won't play in the preseason.
I'm
I
not
think he
giving Aaron
should.
Rodgers no pass. For as much as
I
he
mean,
run his mouth,
I wouldn't
no.
either, but we know that's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, everybody's going to be raving about the 2 touchdown passes, but then, like, watching the game, you can still see he's not up to speed yet. He doesn't look, I guess, like how a lot of people thought he would when some people were picking this Jets team to not only make the Super Bowl. There's people this year who think they're going to win the Super Bowl. After 2 weeks, I'm not there with it. And they face the Patriots Thursday night, short week, another pretty good defense. Let's see what they look like. Oh, here we go. Here's something that you can agree on with John. Trevor Lawrence, overrated.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
Like when I listen to the Trevor Lawrence Golden Pony Boys, I get mad because I'm like, you're finna sit here and just sit here and shift all the blame to the wide receivers. Granted, I know Jacksonville missed Calvin Ridley yesterday. They've
Mm-hmm.
been missing him for the past 2 weeks, but that's neither here or there because they've been telling, according to them, they didn't need him. He was dropping too many passes and making Trevor Lawrence look bad. Now look, who made a good play to help their team score, and where is Trevor Lawrence? Fumbling around with Christian Kirk, who has the dropsies, and company, who have the dropsies, and they're not playing well. Yeah, he's overrated, and his decision making is overrated. I've been saying this about Trevor Lawrence for the past 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Overrated. I'm like, they wouldn't even have a playoff appearance if the other coach. They wouldn't have a playoff win if the other coach had been anybody else other than Brandon Staley. Anybody else would
Sure
have
seems like that.
coached that Chargers team to a win. I would have did that because I probably would have just ran the crap out of the ball.
Yeah.
Play keep
We,
away.
we know Harbaugh wouldn't have allowed that comeback. I mean,
Exactly. I'm like, overrated. I'm like, that's why I'm not taking Deshaun playing necessarily a better game. He played better than what he played against the Cowboys. I'll give him credit. That's the last thing of credit that he'll get from me. I will give him credit about that.
mm-hmm.
But did he make Did he do anything so wonderful that made me forget about his performance last week? No, because they're going to play defenses that are better than Jacksonville's, that are more on par with an on-click Cowboys. Because we all know that the Cowboys got a foot broke off in their rear end today too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm not there with Deshaun, and I am there. I'm there with Trevor Lawrence when it comes to overratedness.
I mean, look,
I,
Trevor Lawrence went 14 for 30 for 220 today. No
that's
touchdowns,
sub 50%.
no interceptions. Yeah.
That's like
And
49, but still, that's not good
Watson was
enough.
Watson was 22 of 34 for 186. No touchdowns, no interceptions.
See,
So, bit of a wash
neither
there.
one of them were impressive.
No. Well, the bar for Watson is so much lower that the fact that he didn't turn the ball over seems like a win for Cleveland. Trevor Lawrence obviously has a higher standard for sure. And like I've said, like John is saying, the bar might be a little bit too high right now. Got to come down on the expectations.
He picked at
Pat says,
Clemson.
yeah. I mean, that was like Clemson. That was a heyday Clemson. It wasn't hard for anybody to look good there. Um, Pat says he still has the Jets win in the East. Rogers looks good accuracy and ball's still pretty. He's okay.
I think the
I mean,
Bills
look,
might win the East.
I think the Bills will. Yeah, I had the Dolphins winning it before the season, but I mean the whole Tua thing, which I guess the update, if you guys don't know, he's supposed to meet with the neurologist this week. He still says he doesn't have any plans on retiring, but obviously a lot of people will be wanting to see what happens out of the meeting with the neurologist and whether or not that changes, his mentality on everything. So I guess this could be a big week for Tua's future.
Tua should have been Tua should have been the one in the Guardian cap. I don't know what took his coconut head self thinking that he didn't need a Guardian cap. Him out of all people needs a Guardian cap.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I looked into that and the league put out like 3 helmets that they said were deemed the safest. I'll give Tua this. He's wearing one of them. I thought the same thing like you because I have to see the numbers for this week. Last week, 5 players wore the Guardian cap. One was Jabril Peppers on the Patriots. That's why I thought about it after the game. He said his reasoning was he plays safety. He hits big guys over the middle. Why not wear the Guardian cap and be safer? There's a tight end. I can't remember who he plays for. He said he's had 2 concussions. He's already like worried about it, so he put on the Guardian cap. My question was, are those 2 using a different helmet from Tua? And I'm assuming the Guardian cap works on different types of helmets. So I kind of thought the same thing. Like, why wouldn't he have just gone with the extra protection with the Guardian cap?
Like, you know that right now you still don't know how to slide. You look goofy when you run, so you're susceptible to more hits. Why do you not have that Guardian cap on, knowing that you've had two to three concussions already
well,
in
technically
short
4,
periods of time? Pretty much four.
last year at Alabama he had one, and maybe that's what the
See,
neurologist will do. So maybe that's where it comes from. He meets with the neurologist and he goes, "Look, if you want to continue playing, I get you picked this helmet or whatever, but you need the Guardian cap too." Maybe that's where it goes, and he tries it. And also, if he gets in that position again, don't dive head first anymore. Slide. I get you're trying to make an extra play, get a couple extra yards. Not worth it at this point.
because I looked at the
Uh,
last one, he ran into DeMar Hamlin's thigh. I'm like, that's textbook concussion right there.
we kind of talked about that already, Anthony. But yeah, both of us are like we think they need to use Derrick Henry more and differently. All right,
Yeah,
so
they
John had
need to.
top 5 trash starting quarterbacks this year. He has Jones, Bryce Young, Watson, Lawrence, Richardson. I guess the question would be, is he missing anybody from that five, or are those the five worst quarterbacks right now?
Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones. Bryce Young ain't. He got a little league team around him, minus Xavier Legette, who just has a really strong Southern drawl.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Watson is cooked. Lawrence is overrated. Richardson overrated and could never really. He was more boom or bust coming out of college anyway. So I don't know why people are getting their panties in a twist when he's not playing well. He didn't play well necessarily in college.
Right.
He was playing like this in college, but because it's in college and he can get away with it because the talent around him, that's how he got here.
Yep.
Trash. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with the list. The one who gets an excuse from me is Bryce Young. Because if you go to play for the Panthers, I wish you luck.
Yeah.
He's literally being set
But
up to fail.
question could be with Bryce Young, if he and CJ Stroud switch places, how would both of them look? Do you think Bryce Young would have as successful of a start to his career if he was in Houston, knowing everything we've seen with Houston? And would CJ Stroud struggle as much as Bryce Young? The only thing CJ Stroud obviously has, he has the size. Bryce Young being smaller and everything like that, maybe CJ Stroud would be able to make it work in Carolina. Obviously, everything around those two players is where I think a lot of the questions come from. So it's almost like, because of the mess Carolina is, I don't even know how we rate Bryce Young right now.
Exactly, because what do they need?
Yeah.
Now, John, the one thing I will say, what did Houston had pieces already in place
Mm-hmm.
when they drafted CJ Stroud. They had a better team than the Panthers did. The Panthers, they still need an offensive line. They still need a defensive line. They still need better secondary pieces. They still need better linebackers.
Yeah.
The only thing I
I
can
mean,
say that they've gotten better at is maybe the receiver, but they can still get another one or two or three.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Like
I'm not
the
going to
biggest issue with
compare apples to
Houston,
oranges.
the biggest issue with Houston when they got CJ Stroud was the front office. A lot of people looked at that front office and thought it was a joke with, some of their coaching decisions and, and everything like that. Talent was there. It was just about leadership there. Carolina, it's like leadership is an issue. And depending on how you feel about some of these guys in Carolina, it might be a talent issue. I mean, they got Miles Sanders, who they got from Philly a couple of years ago, but I think a lot of Eagles fans looked at Miles Sanders and was like, okay, we're not going to necessarily miss you like that. They have Chuba Hubbard. I don't know how you feel about him as a running back. Wide receiver group. So I'm looking at the game today where Bryce Young was 18 for 26. Not bad. 84 yards. That tells you what you need to know about what's going on around him. So we're looking at Adam Thielen. Okay, if this was 5 years ago, maybe. Jonathan Mingo. Doesn't seem like that's really caught on yet with him. Deontay Johnson didn't work in Pittsburgh. Uh, Tommy Trumbull. To be
Who?
honest with you, I have no idea who that is. I mean, I just looked up. He played at Notre Dame. I still don't really know who that is. Those are his main targets right now. And John's been putting in here. CJ Stroud's got Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Joe Mixon in the running back room. They brought in Stephon Diggs. Like, they have better skill position players. So it's real tough to compare the two. But I will say, John, also, I was one of those who thought coming out of the draft that CJ was better than Bryce Young. And part of that was CJ's a bigger quarterback. But John also had most improved so far this year. Sam Darnold, Derek Carr. I keep want to say David Carr. Derek Carr or Kyler Murray.
It's too
That's
far
actually.
in the tail, especially with all three of them. With
Mhm.
all three of them names, it is way too early to tell.
I mean,
Especially Derek
he
Carr.
did throw in there. He did throw in there so far. So through 2 weeks, let's just say, who are you most surprised by out of the three in their performance through 2 weeks?
Darnold.
Yeah,
Darnold. Because I don't expect anything from Darnold. He was the pleasant surprise.
yeah.
Kyler Murray, my issue with Kyler Murray is his motor. Like what like with his motor. Like
Hmm.
what gets him to go? Is it video games, bruh? Is it
Well,
people asking you about getting the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. that just makes you go, that sets you off? What?
the new Call of Duty's not out yet. Well, we'll see once that comes out how his play starts looking. He was 17 for 21, 266 yards today, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So
Man,
Kyler had a
that Rams secondary is trash. Like,
yeah,
good Lord.
and they gave up. I mean, Arizona ran for 231 yards as well. So the Rams didn't
So that
stop
whole
any.
defense is just trash.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, here we go. From Anthony. Sean Payton needs to chill out. Bo Nix ain't it. He no ain't no Drew Brees. Oh, he threw over 40 times.
He sure did.
I gotta be honest with you, I missed a lot of that game. I'll probably check that one out
I
later.
don't do the Broncos because I don't like how Sean Payton does things, but I will
Mm.
watch them to see them lose.
He was
Um,
20 for 35 for 246, 2 interceptions. Only ran for 64 yards. So yeah, they probably need to maybe work on that a little bit more.
why are you having Bo Nix, your rookie, throw 40 times a game? Why are you having him throw 40 times, period? You do know you need a balanced offense. You do know you need a balanced offensive attack, Sean. Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, Pittsburgh only scored 13 against them. So maybe a little more balance. You might have scored more than six.
They
Shout out
didn't
to Justin
score in the
Fields.
they didn't get a touchdown. They scored two field goals. You mean to
Right.
tell me you did all of that to prepare for a game to get out there and just kick and throw the ball 40 times?
Yep. And those two field goals came in the fourth quarter. So for much of the game, they didn't do much of anything. Fields was 13 for 20 for 117 and a touchdown. To be honest with you, with that Pittsburgh defense, that's kind of all they really need him to do. Just don't turn the ball over. And at least they ran for 141 yards.
Now I will say if Russ come back and he start turning that ball over, they're gonna yank him. They're gonna yank him. And he starts throwing
Right.
dumb picks, they're not they're gonna yank him because they see what Justin Field is capable of doing when you
Mm-hmm.
give him a chance. So if they were to do that, is go back from Fields to Wilson, and Wilson starts throwing picks and fumbling and doing all of that other stuff, they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
yank him. And Russ will be out of luck for next year.
Timing, yes, timing will definitely be everything with him. The more weeks Fields gets behind him, and obviously the more wins he gets, the shorter the leash would be for Russ, even if they give him an opportunity. I do agree with that one. Pat answered before. He said Darnold's the biggest surprise. Definitely agree. Darnold looks like the quarterback that the Jets probably thought they were going to get and didn't.
Hmm.
Let's see.
Who
Braden
was the
Fisk
coaching staff when they drafted him?
was dude. Was that what's homeboy's name?
Gase.
Yes. Which isn't Gase like coaching middle school now or something like that?
I think so.
That's kind
That's
of
why
wild.
Sam Darnold's career ain't never went nowhere. He had Adam Gase as a head coach.
That's kind of wild. He went from it guy because he coached Peyton Manning to you don't even hear his name anymore. Seen a lot of injuries these 2 weeks. Yeah. Although I feel like I haven't seen the hip hip drop tackle called a lot. So I guess players are learning or they're just not calling them. I don't know.
It's a little
Steelers are
bit of
playing like
both.
this is pre Steelers are playing like this is pre World War One 1912 football and they're still winning. Helps when you have TJ Watt on the other side.
Yeah, because
Here we
if
go.
you look at the game last week,
That TJ Watt won against Atlanta.
because
Plain and
they
simple.
did not need to move him. Pittsburgh did not need to move him. He lined up with Caleb McGrary and ate his lunch the entire day.
Yeah. Can we talk about how Baker's become an elite? LOL. I know you're joking
Wait
about
till
that.
December.
I mean, look, with Baker, you get aboard this train right now while he's playing good. Because yes, he's one of those that if it does go bad, it can go bad, like pretty bad. I also do think that Baker. I mean, I'm one of those who I will constantly say I'm a little higher on Baker Mayfield than some. I do think since he's left Cleveland, I feel like he learned a little with the little time he had with McVay, and I feel like he's been a better quarterback because of it. Now, once again, Tampa Bay, like he's been there a couple of years now. He is comfortable there. I mean, I don't know. It's like a tough thing to answer because I don't think he's elite, like I said, but I do think he's a quarterback you can win with.
He's a
And
Tannehill.
that might not actually be a bad comparison because Tannehill, you could win a division, you could win playoff games, but do you see Tannehill taking you to a Super Bowl and winning one?
No,
Maybe
because
not.
the opportunity that he had, he threw 3 picks in a
Yeah,
game that the Titans defense had 9 sacks in. 9.
yeah. So I think the question would have to be with Baker is that what he is? He can win you a division, win you a playoff game, but if it came down to winning an NFC title or winning a Super Bowl, is he the type of quarterback you can? I'd probably say no. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Like I said, I like Baker Mayfield.
I bet
John,
Cleveland like him now too.
that question has been asked to Cleveland fans, and some say no. And I'm like, I don't know if I believe you with that one. But John
They're
says under
lying.
8 wins is Salah fired. Yeah,
Yeah, they had under 8 wins last year, and he didn't get fired. So if they lose more than they did last year, he's gone.
especially if that's eight
Him
wins
and
with
the
Aaron
GM.
Rodgers playing all year, then yeah, Salah's gone. Last year he got the pass because it was Zach Wilson and guys most of the year. But if Aaron Rodgers plays all 17 and they win 8 or less, miss the wild card, yeah, he's gone. He's
If
gone the
Aaron
day
Rodgers plays
after.
half the season and they have a capable quarterback coming
Mhm.
back to back him up, that's not going to be an excuse anymore. So if he plays half the season and they come out sub 500, he's gone.
Yeah.
Because what have you done in 4 years other than waste defense? And we already see that the defense is starting to take a small step back. It's not that noticeable, but it is.
Mhm. I mean, if they lose Thursday to New England, that conversation might start happening with Jets fans. John said people were saying that about Flacco last year. Pat, when the Bucks get Cansey back, they're going to be a force for real. People take them lightly. I don't see why. I was
Is he really,
on
Pat?
the ball. But I said on the ball. My overreaction was the Bucks are going to win the South. I picked the Falcons before the season. It was we were forced to come up with an overreaction. That was one I had. I could see them win the division. I think Atlanta's got to show me, especially Monday against Philly, that they've learned from the Pittsburgh game. Do we think Chase and Higgins will be free agents next year, leaving Cincinnati with nobody? That's
Chase,
that's tough.
no. Higgins, yes.
I agree. I think Chase finds a way to say.
Is
If
Baker
they
really
both
better
leave,
than
that would
Tannehill,
be.
though?
Oh, you talking about the next comment?
Yeah, because I'm like, is he really?
See, I think I mean, Pat, I'm not going to speak for you necessarily, only because, there's the difference between Tannehill, like Dolphins Tannehill, Titans Tannehill. Titans Tannehill, I think Baker's probably, well, actually, Titans Tannehill's better than Dolphins Tannehill, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
off rip. So if we're saying that Titans
I
Tannehill is Baker is not better than Titans Tannehill. They're the same person.
I think if you think Baker's better, I wouldn't say 10 times better. I
Two,
mean
maybe one.
That Tannehill year when he took him to the AFC title game, that was peak Tannehill right there. John says Baker is Fitzmagic. I mean, I think Baker's a little better than Fitzmagic. I think I get where you're kind of coming from with that one. Because Fitzmagic, he starts 3-4 games, he looks pretty good. If you had to have him start 9-10 in a row, he gets kind of exposed. I guess. John says 2016 Pats win Thursday, book it. John, and once again, I know we're both Pats fans. I feel a lot better about that game Thursday based off of how I've seen the Jets so far. I think that
Yeah,
Patriots
you have a
defense is
defense that can rattle
legit.
them.
Yeah, I could see Keon White getting to him a couple of times because that dude's turned into a beast already, which makes sense why they were so willing to move off of Matt Judon. You give Keon White the freedom to be a starter and play as much as he can, and you're seeing early on that he's a game wrecker.
Because they learn as they play. That's why when the
Exactly.
Will Levis overreactors started getting on my nerve, I'm like, he's gonna learn the more that he's played. He has not started a full season yet.
Mm-hmm.
This is his what, 11th game starting?
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah. Christian Gonzalez with a pick. I love Christian Gonzalez. I can see that. I would love to see Christian Gonzalez pick off Aaron Rodgers. I'd love to see a pick six from him. I wish Barmore was here with Keon. I mean, that was the plan before the Barmore health scare. Because I agree with you, that would have been a really good defensive line with those two. I mean, the D line's been pretty good now, but yeah, Barmore would have made it so much better. And
Would it
Keon White
been would
made
have
it
been
easier on Barmore.
would have been kind of like the Jeffrey Simmons Tavondre Sweat type of dynamic, you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the other thing is like if you had Barmore, I think Keon White would be playing on the outside a bit more. Like he's playing in the middle because Barmore is not there. And I mean, Keon White is a guy you can kind of bounce around on the D line. I mean, yeah, they're both guys who can get pressure from the D line spot, which not a lot of teams necessarily have that. And we've seen already Simmons and Sweat can do that for you. So yeah, that's a good comparison. Gonzalez is the best cornerback in the NFL this year. Go look how he locks players down. He's started off well, locked down Chase. Today, was he mainly on? He was mainly on Metcalf today, I believe. I think they put one of the Joneses on Smith and Jigba, and then Lockett. Who was on Lockett? Probably the other Jones. Yes, I think Gonzalez was following DK Metcalf around today. Now DK did have the one long touchdown, but that was clearly a busted coverage. I mean, caught up with all the comments. Okay. Definitely appreciate all of you in the comments. Like this is what we're looking for when we do this every week starting out. I mean, Jordy, do you want to take I guess, look at Sunday Night Football and just give like a quick, I guess, initial thoughts on the game since we are kind of like a lead into it. John says, side note, get your broom
This is
ready.
a football show. We're not talking about baseball. Let's keep this on
I
topic.
just realized that's what he started talking with the Braves. So yeah, Sunday night, Texans Bears. So we get to see
Texans.
Caleb Williams prime time. We get CJ Stroud. You said Texans. I have the Texans winning as well. What do you want to see from Caleb Williams after what you saw from him last week?
Absolutely nothing. I'm not a Caleb Williams person. I'm never going to be a Caleb Williams person. I don't. He's not my cup of tea. And from what I saw last week, he has flashes.
Mm-hmm.
But if he thought my defensive line gave him hell, wait till he wait till the Texans get him. They
Yeah.
have a quarterback that's done with their growing pains, that won't make those type of mistakes that Will Levis did. They're not. It's not going to be. I feel like this is not going to be close. If
Okay.
Caleb Williams magically decides he wants to improve, okay. If he decides he wants to regress, I could care less. I'm not a Caleb Williams person. I don't give a rat. I really don't care.
Okay. I mean, Caleb Williams is, yeah. Some people are really high on him. Some have questions about him, and some don't think he's cut out for it. So we'll see as he kind of continues on here. Like I said, I have the Texans winning. I feel like we'll probably get another big game from Joe Mixon. They've kind of shown that they're willing to commit to Joe Mixon, who Cincinnati would probably love to have him back. But yeah, I just like what they're doing around CJ Stroud. Like they didn't just rest on, you Tank Dell and Nico Collins. They saw an opportunity to get Diggs. They went and got Diggs. They saw an opportunity to go get Mixon. They went and got Mixon. So they put players around him so that he doesn't have to, do too much. And that's coming off of last year where he played really well. So yeah, I think it should be a pretty easy win for the Texans. But as we've seen so far this season, yeah, it's kind of safe to say that you can't really assume much of anything, at least right
Right.
now. Anthony
But
says
I'm
that
not.
lineup because he didn't know that Keenan Allen wasn't playing.
Oh yeah.
Tevin Jenkins better redeem himself, bro, because that wasn't it. Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones versus Anderson and Hunter about to be lit. That's right, they got Daniil Hunter too. I forgot about that. Oh, hold
That's
on.
why I'm like, he got away with one last week because Will Levis was making rookie mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
He's not playing against. He's not playing against a green in the butt, green behind the ears Will Levis. He's playing
Mm-hmm.
against a CJ Stroud and a very good defense. Again, the Bears' offensive line does not impress me. The Bears' defensive line does not impress me. Their secondary, eh,
I mean,
they made moves,
Jalen Johnson is pretty good. I guess overall, yeah.
eh, they don't impress me. So I don't really expect much from the Bears, and I don't care about Caleb Williams.
Bears online don't impress me. Swift only has 30 yards. Yeah, they need to get him going. All right, so Anthony said, my dude, Jaden Daniels, needs to learn how to slide before he is the next RG3. Yeah, I saw that play when he was down for a little bit and they were looking at him. I was kind of worried about an ankle or something like that. He did come back into the game after that. Every young mobile quarterback though has to learn that. I feel like Jaden Daniels is smart enough. He'll start to figure it out. Because yes,
Growing
RG3 is
pains.
definitely a cautionary tale.
If you're dealing with a young quarterback or a second year quarterback, you're dealing with quarterback growing pains.
Mm-hmm.
It is extremely frustrating to watch at times. Believe me, I know.
The Bears can put up 21, and somebody other than Montez Sweat can get pressure. They have a good shot.
Yeah, that's why they
We'll
don't
see.
impress me.
We will see if they can do that. So I will say Sunday Night Football does start in like 5 minutes, and our plan for this show is to be out before Sunday Night Football gets started. So I guess I'll give you one final thought or something before we get out of here, Jory.
Um,
I guess you wanted to like capture all of Sunday's action, one phrase. What would you go with?
a kerfuffle.
I, Hey, I asked for a phrase. You gave me kerfuffle. You don't hear that everywhere. Um, what's up with these running backs scoring 3 or 4 touchdowns? I think it's a commitment to some teams want to be physical. I was about to say that. I love seeing some of these teams with a physical brand of football. I commended Detroit last week when they won in overtime, very physical. Seattle and the Patriots, physical brand of football. I mean, Pittsburgh is a physical team as well. I feel like fans will come to appreciate that because it did seem like we were headed to a point where it's going to be basically like 7-on-7 and guys just throwing all around. I mean, quarterback play probably has something to say about that, but I think that does go to what you're saying, Anthony, about these running backs scoring a lot more right now, which for them they're probably hoping ups their value because obviously running back isn't at the highest premium right now. But if they continue to score, better for them. All right, so this will be the last comment before we get out of here. Tua, what do you think will happen? Retire, take the 124 million and be healthy. Sit till next year. Miami go after Jameis Winston, Flacco, Jimmy G. So I guess he's asking, what do we feel like happens
If
with
you
Tua?
had paid attention through the whole show instead of trying to troll me, John, you would have got my opinion on that earlier.
I mean, so I guess I'm once again, I'm gonna assume he was listening, and maybe he's asking because we gave our opinion on what we would want to happen. I guess he's saying, what do we think will happen? I'll just phrase it that way.
He
I mean,
doesn't
it
want to
might be the same
retire.
as what your opinion is. Then, okay, he doesn't retire.
He's not. He doesn't want to. He already came
Yeah,
out with, "I'm not retiring."
yeah,
So what's probably going to happen is he's going to have a consultation with this doctor, this
yep.
neurologist, neurologist. Like, come on, I cannot talk today. But
That's a
he's
weird
going to
word.
have a
I struggle
consultation
with
with
it
the
too.
neurologist. He's going to probably going to have a consultation with his family. And if he's smart, he ain't got, and he ain't, if he has more than air in between his head, he would know. Put the guardian cap on it. Put it on. That's probably where we're going to go with that.
I agree. I think after the neurologist, we see him wearing the guardian cap, and then at that point, it's probably another concussion, and you're done. Miami takes the helmet away from him, and he you just can't do it anymore. That's I kind of agree. We see the guardian cap, whether it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, he'll be one of those guys. So yeah, that's kind of all. That's why Miami ain't never going to do anything. I'll just read these out and then we'll get out of here. They're all finesse. When you punch them in the mouth, they fold. Jory and I have said that about them for a while. Good night. Appreciate you, Pat. Thanks for coming in. Anthony said he's not retiring yet. John was bathing during a speech. Okay. And Miami should have a contract where Tua gets worse. It's not their fault. I do think I read somewhere there is a provision in there's like an injury clause or something within there.
Yeah, if he
So
retires due to injury, he's gonna get some of that money anyway.
yeah,
So I'm like, I'm not. The NFL ain't
I,
gonna do that. That's
you,
dumb.
you
Good
you
night.
can't
I'm
force that
done.
anyway.
Good night.
Yeah, you can't. You couldn't force that if you wanted
Let's
to.
wrap this up. Good night.
The amount of lawsuits that would come from that, you cannot enforce that.
That's a
But yeah,
dumb. That's dumb. That was
Sunday night,
unintelligent.
yeah, not gonna happen. Sunday night football is about to get started, so we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. So once again, this is first edition of Snap Counts. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, follow or subscribe. Make sure you come back next week. Like I said, it should be myself and Jory and hopefully a couple of other people as well, but at least one other one. So make sure you come back for some more fun discussion. And John, you don't need to troll as much. We'll leave it with that. But yeah, thanks again, everybody. See you next week. For Jory and myself, good night. Enjoy Sunday Night Football.